Split Fiction is a co-op adventure that might feel somewhat questionable at first, but definitely wins you over by the end. It has a very effective premise of exploring the simulated worlds of two writers. Mio, an introvert who focuses on sci-fi, and Zoe, an extrovert who prefers fantasy, with each of their stories providing some temporary new mechanics in addition to the core platforming ones. However, throughout the majority of the main Golden Path, it doesn't feel like the game actually knows what to do with this premise in a holistic sense, being nothing more than an excuse for a variety of admittedly cool and extremely polished mechanics wrapped around fun, creative levels that are just a joy to go through with your co-op partner. On one hand, that's what's most important in a game like this. On another, any attempts at immersion will be foiled by forced conflict between Mio and Zoe, a big number of cutscenes where character progression happens arbitrarily through excessive dialogue rather than naturally through action because most levels are disconnected from their arcs and inner states, and the fact that these stories we go through are just that in name. In reality, they're more like high-level concepts with basic world building and sometimes a couple side characters. And depending on your pre-existing knowledge and comfort with certain gameplay styles, Split Fiction's desire at regularly changing things up can backfire. It's undeniably jarring when a game that's for the most part about jumping and unique abilities suddenly becomes focused on tons of shooting without any prior proper preparation. Of course, there are accessibility options for those who feel like they can't complete unexpected segments like this without them, but it's still not an ideal situation. That being said, Split Fiction is also a game of extreme highs. There are 12 smaller optional side stories that I would say are actually better than the majority of the main campaign. Not only do they retain the principle of injecting unique abilities into the core mechanics for the purposes of variety, they also explore different parts of Mio's and Zoe's personalities through gameplay, level design, and progression, in a way fulfilling the promise of the premise better than the main chapters. But the main campaign pulls itself together for the last third when Split Fiction is at its true best, with a couple fantastic chapters delving deep into introspection of our two protagonists, followed up by an insane, bonkers, creative, amazing ending sequence that in its particular implementation not only isn't possible outside of the video game's medium, it's not even possible outside of Split Fiction's premise in particular. So when the credits roll, you might not even remember if you had any issues with the game in the first place. Such strong is the lasting impression of its finale. As such, if we were to use my Stasocritic Rating system that is explained in the description, Split Fiction is going to get a score of 87. It's a great, fun, memorable co-op adventure that, depending on your preferences, might have a rocky start, but it absolutely nails the landing.